Alright, today we are going to focus on finding slope using 2 points that lie on the line. So again, we went over this yesterday. Slope is a rate of change. It can be positive. That's a positive slope. It could be negative. It could be 0. That's if it's a horizontal line, or if it's vertical. We say it's undefined. If you remember, we talk about slope as a ratio of two things. We talk about it as rise over run. You have to stand up before you can walk. And then I will give you these two formulas. We need to have these memorized today. The first one is y sub 1 minus y sub 2 over x sub 1 minus x sub 2. And this talks about the ordered pairs you're going to get, x sub 1, y sub 1, and you'll get an x sub 2, y sub 2. The other formula I give you is pretty much the same, it just reverses the order. But notice that if we start with the y2 in the numerator in the top of the fraction, then we have to start with the x sub 2 in the denominator in the bottom of the fraction. So as long as you're consistent, you could either use this formula or this formula. And I don't care which one you choose, but we need to memorize one of them. Okay, so we're going to talk about our slopes, our 4 different slopes. We talked about this yesterday, and I believe I'm having you draw that on your homework or on your notes. So positive, we're rising from left to right. The slope is greater than 0. Negative is when from left to right it falls, it goes down. And m has to be less than 0 so that it's negative. We have 0 slope. That's a horizontal line. This will occur when you have y equals some number, like y equals 5. Your slope will actually give you 0 over 12 or something like that, which we know 0 divided by anything is 0. And the last one you'll see is an undefined slope. This occurs when you have a vertical line, and it'll occur when you have something like 4 divided by 0. It could be 10 divided by 0. And we know that anything divided by 0 is undefined. So we're going to apply our formula. The first thing that I would suggest is that you label these x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, and then apply that formula. And I'm going to use the first one, which says we take y sub 1, so I replace the y sub 1 with 4, minus y sub 2, which is a negative 8, over x sub 1, 3, minus x sub 2, 6. And then from here we just solve that. M represents our slope, and that's what we're trying to find. So we take 4 plus a negative, or minus a negative 8 becomes positive when you have those two negatives together. So 4 plus 8 is 12. Over 3 minus 6 is negative 3, and this will reduce to give you negative 4 over 1, or 4 over negative 1. That negative, it doesn't matter what it's attached to, as long as it does not go to both. And we would describe our slope as being negative. Okay, so we're going to follow that same pattern here. You want to label these x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And find the slope. Y sub 1 is 3, minus y sub 2, 4, all over x sub 2, negative 2, minus x sub 2, which is 4. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. And negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. Since they're both negative, it becomes positive. 1/6. And we would describe the slope as being positive. Okay, we follow the same idea over here. We label them x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And I'll still stay with the y sub 1. So negative 8 minus y sub 2, a negative 8, all over x sub 1 minus x sub 2. And we notice here a negative times a negative, or when you have those two negatives together, it becomes positive. So negative 8 plus 8 is 0. 3 minus 5 is negative 2, and 0 divided by anything is 0. So we would say this has a 0 slope. Okay, our second one, we're still going to label those. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And use that same formula, y sub 1 minus y sub 2 over x sub 1 minus x sub 2. And we get 3 minus a negative 4, that becomes positive. 3 plus 4 is 7, over 2 minus 2 is 0. And we cannot divide by 0, so we say that this is undefined. I have some rules at the bottom. If you get m equals 0, then your line is horizontal, and we talked about this on a couple slides ago. If you find out that you get some number divided by 0, then that means you have a vertical line, and that was our example D, and this horizontal line was our example C. Okay, another way to find slope is if you're given a table. And what we're going to do is we're going to find out how these change. So from negative 4 to negative 2, you have to add 2. To negative 2 to 0, you add 2 again. And then from 0 to 2, we add 2. So then we look at our y values. How are these changing? From 6 to 2, you're adding, or you're subtracting 4, or adding a negative 4. From 2 to negative 2, you're subtracting 4, and from negative 2 to negative 6, you're subtracting 4. So we know that slope is a rate of change, and we've talked about rates of change already. But remember, rate of change is this change that's occurring in the y values over the change that's occurring in the x values. So to write this as slope, we would say negative 4 over positive 2, and then this reduces to give us negative 2 over 1, and that rate of change is the same as slope. It's constant, it's changing at the same rate, and so we know that we have a line that is linear. Alright, that should get you through your assignment for slope using 2 points worksheet. Good luck.